Hello and welcome back to Candid Talk with Adelle. I am seated in beautiful gardens at Inyamat Gardens in Ntinda, Chigowa Road. If you have anything like a bridal shower, anything that you want to do, small functions, birthdays, Kwanjula meetings. These days we do Kwanjula meetings, yes. I don't know if we do Kuchala though. Inyamat Gardens are a place to be. Venues are free. All you have to do is buy some food. Don't come here and just sit on. Just buy some food. And we'll leave all the numbers here on your screen for any reservation that you want to make. Welcome back. If you've been with us for all this while, thank you so much. But if you're new, please subscribe. We are growing steadily. You want to be a part of this amazing family that is learning, but also being accountable in our families, in our workplaces, in our businesses. We are here to bring this information to you in very simple terms. Your subscription keeps us going. I still have my beautiful friend here as my guest, Mercy, the lawyer, the head of program at Action Aid, everything beautiful that you want to know. Today we are talking about divorce. How much do you know about divorce? Let's get started. Welcome back, Mercy.
Thank you.
You're as beautiful as usual. Yes,
you too. You look amazing in your red. It's almost easy to tell you love red.
Yes. I think if I made a poll and said, if anyone who loves red, please raise your hand, I would win that poll.
We would vote for you.
How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you doing? How have you
Good.
been?
I'm all right.
Great.
We are talking divorce. I don't like talking
Sadly.
about divorce.
Yes.
But we're talking about this subject because it's been happening a lot lately.
Yes.
And it's important to understand why, but also what are those things people consider by the time you say, you know what, I am done. I am walking into that family court and asking for a divorce. First of all, what is divorce?
Divorce is really the point at which one of the parties to a marriage permanently decides that they want to end their marriage or their union. So because marriage, as we discussed in previous episodes, has an aspect of legality, so does divorce. That means that the fact that your relationship was solidified within the law also means that at the point at which you say, you know what, I'm tired, I don't want to be in this union, you must also go to the law to dissolve it. So that is what divorce in simple terms would be.
So you can only get divorced if you're married.
Yes.
Not if you're cohabiting.
No. Because there's no marriage anyway. What are you dissolving?
That has to be clear.
That's just a breakup.
Yes, it's just deciding to say,
it's just your mother to
let's move on.
Yeah. Because there's nothing anyway.
Yes, and there's this confusion about divorce and separation.
Yes.
What is that relationship between the two?
Yeah, so divorce, as I said in the definition, is really more of a permanent decision.
Yeah.
It's the permanent decision made by court to separate a couple that has been married. And that always comes after one of the parties to this relationship goes to the courts and asks that their marriage be dissolved.
Yeah.
However, there is legal separation, which is also similar to what a divorce is, but this one is just a party making a request to be separated from the other party without necessarily dissolving
the marriage itself.
So they remain married, but they are legally separated.
And that can it be by mutual agreement, or also it has to be by judicial authorization?
It's safer when, of course, it is through the law.
Yeah.
Because usually if it is not within the law, people fight and they, they go and sleep in separate bedrooms and all of that. But it must have a force of law for it to be recognized and for certain rights within such a marriage to be preserved, even as you are separated. Because what usually happens is that people just, separate, they stop living together, and many times in the process, certain rights are compromised.
Yeah.
For example, issues like children rights issues like property rights. There are certain issues that need to be safeguarded because there's still a marriage, and within this marriage are rights, and there are also other parties perhaps that are beneficiaries of this marriage.
Very true.
So that's why it's important to seek a legal separation. The court grants it to you, and then sometimes it's granted when the main divorce is going on. That process is ongoing. Yeah, so being separated does not affect the divorce process. It only legalizes that separation, so that, and within that order for separation, usually the person applying, and also they're able to, you know, have certain core discussions, which may also be featuring in the main divorce. So these can be things like maintenance of children, because of course if you're going to be separated, there are conversations of where are children going to be, are they remaining with you, are they going with me,
custody,
what happens, should I leave my family home and whatever. So a legal separation means that the court is able to quickly determine those rights, even as you seek the main process.
Yes, and to make it very clear, please note that separation does not mean the marriage has ended.
No.
It doesn't until it's at the end.
Yes.
It does not mean the marriage has ended.
Yeah.
And that has to be a bit clear.
Yeah.
What would be that moment? What can someone consider to say, you know what, I think it's time to file for divorce? What are the considerations?
Of course, the law gives us very many grounds for you to say that, you know, you're done with this marriage. And why is this? Why does the law impose? Because the law values marriage. The law holds marriage in high regard.
The Bible does too.
The Bible does too. Our cultures do too.
Yes.
Actually, in my culture, you don't also just walk away from a relationship. You don't. If, for example, you walked away from a relationship, there are issues about return of cows and this, you have to bring back the person officially. So that just goes to show the value attached to marriage.
The marriage,
Otherwise, if those safeguards are not there, then the marriage will not have any value.
You know what it would mean? That I can quarrel with my partner and I wake up and you know what? I'm done. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. So this protects us from making such hasty decisions.
Yes, but also because, you know, those decisions don't just affect you as a person, they affect other people as well. It could be your partner, it could be children, it could be other ventures that you have together. So that is why the law gives us certain grounds. We call them within the law grounds for divorce. One of them is adultery. So
the Bible says it. I think it's in Matthew.
Exactly.
If your partner commits adultery,
yes,
and you should be having evidence
of it. It is actually one of the only things that Jesus mentions when he's talking about divorce. He says the Lord hates divorce, but he does say that adultery can be a ground for divorce, and he qualifies it and says that for people who are legally married, you can actually divorce, but you're not supposed to remarry. And for people who are not who maybe you're staying with somebody who is not, you're not legally or within the faith married, then you can just separate. So when religious leaders talk about divorce and this and that, they have look at your Bible.
So adultery is one of them. For divorce.
It's very serious. Of course, cruelty. That means if a partner is cruel.
Is it only physical, or it can be
emotional? It can be emotional
as well?
It can be emotional, it can be physical, it can be sexual, it can be it can be economic, because there are people who may withhold you from, you know, working, from pursuing your career. They refuse to provide for your family, put you in extreme conditions, and that's a form of violence as well, and cruelty. So it's one of the grounds for divorce. But also abandonment is one of them. If somebody has abandoned you for over a year, that really already gives you
some sort of desertion somewhere.
Yes, they have deserted you, they have abandoned you as the person in the marriage. But also there are other incidences within the law where you know, now people raise them as grounds, issues like rape, issues like bigamy, you know, where you go and contract, you know, you're married in
and you contract another marriage altogether.
Yes, in Uganda it has happened before. Someone is married, they're not divorced, and then goes and tries to contract another marriage. Yes, that is bestiality as well, you know, having sexual relations with animals. Those are all grounds for for divorce. Of course, there are many others, as court may determine but there have to be grounds that the court actually looks at and evaluates and thinks they are valid for.
There are some cases where a marriage can be annulled. For example, if there's some fraudulent, if you got married fraudulently or based on very wrong reasons altogether.
Exactly.
Or you've been coerced into
the marriage. Yeah. But also there are those incidences where perhaps I was a Christian and then I changed into another religion. But also situations where the marriage cannot be consummated. Sex is a very important element of marriage.
Let's repeat that.
Where the marriage has not been consummated, because what makes a marriage is the sex. So if there's no sex, there's no marriage.
You can actually
use that to just
please don't give people ideas. Don't give people ideas, Mercy. But it's a very important part. The reason you leave your home to go to a man's home,
that is a core element. It's the core. You don't go there to do anything else.
So people out there who are in these conditions, they can actually wake up and say, you know what, let's go and file for divorce. But there must be some evidence to back it up, to make sure that it is what you're saying. There are no accusations. You're not just assuming things from anywhere. All these things are considered when a judgment is being made.
Yes, ultimately. And that comes from the fact that, of course, any of us can wake up and make claims that, you know, my husband is doing this, my wife is doing this and that. So you who is petitioning has to prove without doubt that indeed these are the grounds and they exist, and actually these things happened. If it's adultery, do you have proof?
Proof, yes.
I've handled cases where, you know, people have had email extracts, people have had photographic evidence, videos and all of that, because the court is very, very strict about the proof of these grounds. So you have to spend a lot of time to really prove that indeed these grounds exist. Which I actually think
is the reason why these cases take quite some time.
Yes,
because
they do.
You might be out there accusing someone of something they actually didn't commit.
Out of your own insecurity.
Out of your own insecurity, you want to get a divorce because of
that. Or sometimes also somebody has already found another person outside
and
the person is telling you, if you love me, get done with your first wife. And so quickly somebody comes and says, now I want a divorce. And they now have to start looking for the grounds, for the divorce. So that's why some of our famous cases here in Uganda have not gone far, because most of them are associated with men who are already in adultery. They urgently need to marry their concubines, so they run to court to seek security for them to have the marriage dissolved so that they can go on with the other person, and that's not reason enough.
And that's quite unfortunate. So decree NISA, decree absolute. The decree NISA are giving an opportunity to talk about the issues, to reconcile. There could be an opportunity in there to reconcile. So most people, when they get to that level, they think it's done. But I think until it gets to the absolute time,
that's when the marriage is actually, And we always explain to people that, you know, you don't just go and seek for divorce today and it's granted tomorrow. It could take the longest time, because there's so many determinations and orders within a divorce process for a divorce to be considered final. So many times along the way, right from the time you file, court gives you opportunity as a couple to resolve the issues. They actually allow you and your lawyers to have conversations, to have a dialogue on some of the issues and to see if you people can reconsider your decision, because the law, just like we do, understands that sometimes we can get irrational, sometimes we can act out of emotions, and so make certain decisions. And because marriage is permanent in the eyes of the law, and even in our own customs and in our religious faith, many times they consider an opportunity for the couple to, you know, sit down and try and talk things over and find opportunities. So when they give you that decree, it is just to allow you to have that, to see if you cool down and also think and reflect. Do I really want this? Because this decision is about to be permanent. You're about to be
because when you get divorced,
that is it.
All the rights that you had as a married person
are taken
away. So we have to actually,
but also it's permanent. Yes, it's a permanent, and you know, it's layers and layers of emotions, and it's not the same for everyone. So the person seeking a divorce may be in an emotional place where they're ready. I mean, they're done with the relationship. But the other person may not be in that place. They may be in a place where they need time to reconsider, to think and all of that. So sometimes that time is necessary. I've seen in some of the cases I've handled before that couples end up reconciling. They go for counseling, they go for therapy, and they try to work on their relationship. But there are those who say, you know what, this is done, it's irretrievable. They wait for that time span given by the court to expire, and then the court grants the absolute order.
What to note is that when you divorce, you're single again, you're free to remarry, you're free to mingle again and do your own things. But as we conclude this, anyone in the process of divorce, that's two things they need to make sure they look out for.
So, first of all, when you're going into a divorce process, you need to also be aware of the time span within the law, within which you can seek for a divorce. It's not like you marry today, tomorrow you can divorce. You have to be aware of the time span. You have to be aware of also the rights embedded within the marriage before its dissolution, because there are issues around rights, the children,
property.
There are issues around property, and many times property issues really are outstanding because the law gives, a breakdown of how property should be treated where there's a legal marriage, but also there are emotional and other issues within a divorce process. So go into it preparing yourself that this is a very emotionally draining process. It's not something that is going to happen overnight, and that the court is going to be hearing other orders within this process. There are other processes within this. For example, you may be pursuing a divorce matter, and you need to get the court to order for maintenance for your children. So you may not be living together, but children are going to school, they need health care and ABCD. So in this process, you quickly can seek for those orders, or you can, get court together to make certain decisions, even as the longer process is taking place. And divorce takes a while, especially in a court system, because of also how long a court system is. And I think that's all across the world because of all these determinations. But that a divorce begins and ends in court. It does not begin and end outside of court. So those who think that they can just wake up and go out of a marriage, you're still married, my friend.
Wow.
Legally.
So if you're in the divorce process, I don't know what to say. I hope you can get to the nice side and get to reconcile. But if it is that extreme, make sure the legalities are followed. In the meantime, just come to Inyamat and think about it. Who knows? You could change your mind. My name is Adele, and thank you, Marcy. See you next week. Bye-bye.